attention settled on my face. She then smiled at me, said something about my bone structure, and questioned whether I'd consider sitting for an up-and-coming artist. "Oh, no," Eunice muttered, praying Arthur hadn't agreed to sit for Judith because that would definitely complicate her life. Arthur smiled an easy smile, which seemed completely out of character for the man she'd once known. "No need to worry that I was put out over Miss Donovan's query. Yes, it's unusual for me to find myself confronted by up-and-coming artists, but after I told her I'm only in the city for a few days, a week at most, and thus have no time to sit for a portrait, Miss Donovan hustled me right into your office. I wouldn't relax your guard on the way out. Judith possesses a tenacious attitude when it comes to her work. If she has your bone structure in her sights, she'll probably try to convince you to sit for her again. Perhaps I'll use the back door. A prudent decision on your part." Arthur shifted in the chair, causing Eunice to wince when the chair gave a touch of a shudder. "May I assume Miss Donovan doesn't concentrate all her efforts on portraits?" I glimpsed an unfinished painting as she was hurrying me down the hallway, and to my untrained eye, it appeared to be a medley of fruit. Finding it beyond peculiar that Arthur seemed content to engage in idle chit-chat, something he'd never done in their past, Eunice tapped her pencil against her notepad. "Judith used to concentrate her artistic efforts strictly on fruit. She's now dipped her toe into the portrait world, although she's chosen abstract portraits as her latest obsession, having been influenced by a specific female artist whose work Judith admires. I believe the painting you saw was the beginning of a portrait of another one of our agents, Daphne Beekman Henderson." If what I saw is a portrait of Daphne Beekman Henderson, I would definitely describe it as abstract. Is this the same Daphne who was recently revealed to be the author behind the Montague Moreland books? Indeed, she is. I'm a great admirer of Montague Moreland books, Arthur continued. I must admit, though, that I was taken aback when the news broke about Daphne Beekman being the author behind those riveting reads. I could have sworn, given the complexity of the Montague Moreland plots, that they'd been penned by a man. Any lingering remorse she'd been feeling about shooting the man disappeared in a heartbeat, because clearly, lurking underneath the charming demeanor he'd displayed to her thus far, remained a most annoying gentleman. How disheartening to learn you're still one of those less than progressive gentlemen who believe women are incapable of great accomplishments, such as penning complex, and need I add, best-selling novels. That makes me wonder why you'd seek out the services of an inquiry agency that's owned and operated by the feminine set. Arthur's brown eyes narrowed. What did you mean by still? It had been inevitable that her jangled nerves would have her slipping at some point, but she hadn't expected that to happen quite so quickly. Eunice readjusted one of her veils. I simply meant that given your age, which I'm going to estimate to be around 30, you would have outgrown such an attitude. I'm 33, but my age aside, tell me this. Do you make a habit of insulting your clients, Mrs. Holbrooke? Pointing out that I'm not progressive is hardly good for business. I imagine your late husband, Mr. Holbrooke, and allow me to extend my deepest condolences over the loss of him, would have encouraged you to refrain from saying anything controversial that might offend your clientele. Her fingers itched to pull her pistol from the top drawer of her desk, an itch she staunchly ignored. Mr. Holbrooke would have never taken it upon himself to school me on matters of business. Ah, he was a progressive sort, was he? Truthfully, Eunice had no idea if Mr. Richard Holbrooke was progressive, because she didn't actually know a Richard Holbrooke. She'd only chosen that name for her fictitious late husband after reading a lovely account of a Richard Holbrooke's life she'd seen in the New York World, one that had listed his last address as London, far removed from the States. She needed a surname that began with an H because all of her luggage, which she was loath to part with because it had been a gift from her mother, was stamped E.H. That was also why she'd chosen the name Eunice for her new first name, believing Eunice to be